You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there are these things that makes official. Welcome to 60 years, 24 episodes of the Chris Voss Show. Do you know we turn 17 next month in August? Holy crap-a-moly. 2008 or 2009, we were sitting around going, what should we call this podcast we're going to do? And we were coming up with all sorts of stupid names, and we're like, I don't think we're going to keep doing social media management advice 10 years in, or talking about Silicon Valley or Apple or Crapple or Google or all those sort of things that were going on, and of course all the companies that have gone before. So we call it the Chris Voss Show. What a thing. Now refer it to your family, friends, and relatives. Damn it, it's been 16 years already. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok, and even Chris Voss, Facebook.com. And today we have another amazing young man on the show. As always, we have the coolest authors, the people with all the knowledge that bring all their stuff on the show, and then just some idiot with a mic. Today we have AJ Maddeny on the show. The idiot with a mic, of course, is me that I'm referencing. Our guest is the smart one. That's why we have guests, eh? He's the author of the book just came out June 14th, 2025, Divorce, Emergency Protocol by AJ Maddeny. He joins us on the show today. We're going to be talking about his insights, his experience, and what you can learn about conflict, because sometimes people in marriages have conflict. Maybe, every now and then. AJ is a conflict strategist and decision system expert whose work challenges conventional thinking about power, resolution, and personal agency. With advanced degrees in conflict analysis, was he married before? And decision science, he brings a structural lens to life's most oriented experiences, including disputes, negotiations, and misaligned systems. His approach to resolution is grounded in objective analysis and dynamic engagement with systems, roles, and personalities. His goal is to move readers from chaos to clarity, restoring agency and fairness through strategic structure. Welcome to the show. How are you, AJ?
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on your show, Chris.
Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to have you as well. Give us your .coms. Where do you want people to stalk you on the internets there?
Yes, Maddeny.com, MADDENY.com. Lots of information there. Please go and look around.
So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your book?
The book is, of course, from the title, Divorce Emergency Protocol. It's for a specific part of the divorce journey, as it were. But, of course, as you mentioned, I'm focused on relationships and systems. So, it started from the point that we are living in a world that is digital, leaning and oriented. And that's how we think and we do things in binaries, while relationships and marriage in specific is an analog system. So it has a lot of room for understanding and feelings and melodic communication and all of that. But now we have to stick to really binary stuff that is final, yes or no, reaching the conclusion before actually considering the issue. And because my practice, I do a lot of divorces. I thought that this was an important thing because I get a lot of people who, by the time they come to me, have already made a mess of the divorce process. Usually they do it in that 90-day window from one of them saying that they want a divorce. And that's the impetus of the book. So I'm trying to help people not make those mistakes that they cannot recover from going and reaching that divorce decree.
Yeah, and people are so wrapped up in, the emotion of and the identity of being married and their plans and, their feelings about it. Once someone decides to, hold hostage or kill the this thing that they've tried to plan and build together. It's hard not to get emotionally upset about that. And of course, you have children involved as well many times, so you're concerned about the safety of your children and who's gonna protect them, and and so I've seen people, and I'm sure you have too. But yeah, I've witnessed people that they get really caught up in the emotion of it, and I can't blame them. It's totally understandable.
And I hear that you were married multiple times without getting divorced.
Yeah, the running, there's this callback joke on the show for several years. I'm going to change the number like every time of how many divorces I had. The callback joke is that I've never been married. So
yeah, I think you're up to 12 at this point, right?
Yeah, sometimes I go 7. 7's a popular number. It just kind of depends on which number I decide to go with. But yeah,
but you save yourself from a lot of pain. That's what I'm going to say.
Thank you. Well, that was get a vasectomy at 22. That helps. It's a little hard to catch me when the rabbit don't die, as Aerosmith would say. So now, are you an attorney, I guess, by trade?
No, I'm a conflict analysis and resolution specialist. So I did go to law school, but switched because I am not into confrontation. The hope was to actually go through law school to learn how to help people resolve conflicts, not make it worse. And of course, I'm not speaking ill of colleagues here. They do a great job advocating for people who need a voice, and their expertise are really important. However, not everything needs a lawyer. Divorce does not need a lawyer in general, just because now most marriages end up with a divorce, over 50% of the time. So as a society, we really need to come to grips that divorce is just a natural transition that throughout the life of a marriage that goes to the next one, apparently. So for it to be this hard and this tough and this expensive is problematic. And there are easier ways to do it, and that is through mediation, for instance, and through some negotiations. If the couple is able to talk to each other, perhaps if they know how to talk to each other, then it becomes a little bit easier. Instead of turning it into a battle, they can fight over the things that really matter instead of making this a war.
So do you come in, do attorneys hire you to come in for mediation or try and calm situations, or do you work as a mediator? How do you come into the system officially according to the system when there's who's your client? Who calls you in for help?
Desperate people who got to a divorce and can't make heads from tail, and they come directly to me. Okay. So I have a practice where I practice mediation and arbitration, and there is more people who are coming to mediation because it's becoming a little bit more popular with the court systems referring some cases to mediation, especially when it comes to children. So it's starting to take hold in the American psyche, if you will, as an option. And the other thing is a number of lawyers are now certified as mediators as well. So they're putting on that hat, and that's very helpful to moving things towards a collaborative divorce instead of one that is dragged out and muddied.
Yeah. And divorce is hard. I mean, you talk about, it sounds like it, and I'm suggesting the frame of your book, so, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like a lot of your stuff is trying to, focus on the logical and reasonable experience of divorce and trying to calm some of the craziness and emotions and, attack dog maybe some people have on each other, and that can really blow open the costs of divorce. I've been sucked into family court a couple times by friends that are getting divorced, and if you come testify what a horrible person they were, then I'll win custody of the kids or some bullshit. And usually I go in and any help I've done, the court's just like, well, that's really cute, but we're going to keep doing the same thing. And I remember one friend in particular, he wasn't even divorced. They weren't married, but they were fighting over the 2 twins they had, and who was going to have custody and who was going to get child support payments. And they each spent $50,000 just arguing and fighting over every little thing. And he said this, and she did this, and he posted on this girl's comment on Facebook, and it was so stupid. And after $50,000 spending of each, I think she finally went broke, and that's why they settled. And she put it all on her credit cards. And then I think he was doing the same. They spent $100,000 together to fight over nothing. And in the end, after months of arguing and blowing through all this cash, they ended up with the same deal that the judge had offered them at the beginning.
That is true. Actually, that figure is an average, and it goes up from there.
Shit. Wow. This is why Chris never got married. But here's the funny thing. I said to him, I go, you guys are freaking idiots. You could have put that $100,000 into a college account for those twins, and it'd be probably $1 million by the time they're 20 or more or whatever. I don't know. But I was just like, now you're in debt that you're going to pay on credit cards, 25% or 30% or whatever they are, $50,000. And so you just burn the future of your children, really, kind of. And it was just so insane what I saw them doing. They would fight over stupid shit that and the judge would just be like, hey, if you guys want to fight, fucking have fun. But I could see the emotional spin up was part of this whole, that's just crazy. You say 100,000 is average now.
Yeah, that goes up in metropolitan areas. It's even worse, and it depends on the assets that you have. You can lose everything, and you can be in debt, as you just said, and that is why more people are resorting to mediation, and the courts is helping with that with referrals. But the reality of the matter is, people, as you said, are invested emotionally in the punishment and in the process.
Yeah, punish that other person. Oh, we gotta, but they really screw themselves. I mean, I've dated all my life, so one of the things I'll hear from women is well, I was secretly putting money away, and I was secretly running up his credit cards and paying off my credit cards in the divorce. So when we got divorced, I wouldn't have any debt. And turns out, I'm like, when you're divorced, the court kind of splits everything up 50-50. And they're like, yeah, I didn't know that. And you're like, so you wasted all that time and effort. It's just insane how they would. I remember one chick told me that she ran up all the credit cards and all the debt and went just crazy shopping. She had a term for it too. It was really funny. But basically, she wanted to throw everything under the bus for the divorce. And she ended up with 50% of the bill. And I'm just like, so you ran up the bills and you got fucking half.
And that's exactly
shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, you're actually hurting yourself before you can hurt the other person.
And the kids.
You actually have to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
And that is just, smart people do that all the time. And it's not because they're irrational or what have you. There's just a disconnect between the emotion, the immediate relief that they are seeking, and that long-term advantage that they can have if they just took a breather.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm plugging my book here, that I talk about is exactly that. Is like when you're faced with a divorce, when the other side tells you that they want out, what not to do is more important than what you will do. And what you don't do is exactly seek that immediate relief temporarily for the long-term leverage and advantage. Because once you get yourself into that corner, you can't escape. And it's usually at the end of the day, you're paying for it with actual money and options into the future. Yeah. And when you have kids, it's even worse.
Yeah. And they'll fight over just, I don't know if all divorce is that way, but I have a lot of friends get divorced and the stuff they fight about. And I'm just like, dude, just accept it. She doesn't want to be with you anymore. She wants to move on. The one thing I've learned, and this is probably why I'm still single, and I've learned this in business, especially. That's really where a lot of my experience comes from. But I just learned that when someone wants to quit you, and they don't want to, be with you anymore. Maybe they don't want to do business with you anymore. Maybe they're a bad employee. I've just learned that when people quit you, quit your company, whatever, they've thought about it for a long time, especially when women do it. I think sometimes they've been thinking about it for years, and they've thought about it for a long time. So usually when someone tells me, whether it's a girlfriend or whether it's a employee, they want to quit you, I have to realize this person has put a lot of thought and time to this, and they finally vocalize it. They've finally gotten brave enough to vocalize it. And I think some people assume that when someone wants to quit you that, well, I can just talk them back into it. It's like, no, in some cases with divorce, especially, and in other cases in business, they've just probably spent a few years going, how the hell do I end this? Because I just don't want to be here anymore. And so a lot of times that ship has sailed where you can kind of convince them to stay. You might be able to buy some time, but you're just, to me, here's what I tell people, and actually I tell this to girlfriends too. I'm like, never put me in a situation where you hold the relationship hostage and you threaten to kill it if I don't do something, because I'll kill the hostage. And my policy is, if you threaten to leave me, you've thought about it. So I'm just going to advance you to the end point. I'm just going to do Red October on you. I'm going to close the distance between you and the missile and explode it first. So that's kind of my policy. Don't ever try to extort me or hold me hostage, because I'll kill the hostage, and then I'll kill you. Technically, I mean, don't do the killing part, but you know what I mean.
Kill the marriage or the relationship.
Yeah. I take that from the scene of Kaiser Soze in the movie The Usual Suspects. There's a scene there where he does that, and you know what? It's kind of interesting because people will be like, okay, and then sometimes you'll get earlier warnings of stuff, but emotionally and logically, for me, I go, okay, this ship has sailed. I need to accept it. You're fighting over this stuff. Just go. And, in one case I've cited in my business stories, I had a business partner that in our last year he quit, and I talked him into staying, and I knew that I should never do that, because we had that policy with employees. We learned that when employees want to quit, you got to let them quit, and you can't let them come back. And because they'll just leave with a bigger mess. And the same thing with relationships too. And so I made the mistake of talking him into staying, and all he did was, in a year, just make a bigger mess, leaving to try and wipe out the debt and throw his company that he was overseeing that we had in bankruptcy. So yeah, having a logical approach to this stuff is really important, and I think that's what saved me from a lot of this crap.
Yeah, there's a parallel between the business side and the emotional relationship of a marriage or a girlfriend, boyfriend, or what have you, any other combination.
Yeah. Business partnership's kind of a relationship, almost like a marriage sometimes.
Yeah. And when you're saying, you're absolutely right. People actually go beyond just thinking. They sometimes reach out to lawyers. They figure out their finances before getting to that table and saying, I'm out, it's over. Usually it's never an ultimatum. It's not in the heat of the moment. People, when they get to that point, it is serious. And of course, it doesn't make any sense to try to talk them out of it, because you're only agonizing the situation or yourself a little bit more with that hope that is not realistic. And the answer to that, usually, if you're the one who's receiving that, you're shocked, you're in free fall. The thing that you need to ask for immediately on the spot is say, okay, I hear what you're saying. It's a shock. I need to process this emotionally, logically. Obviously, this is serious enough that I need to take enough time, as long as you took to come to this table and tell me about it. And that's usually in the, half a year or two. So as a person who's receiving that information, you need to be able to say on the spot as soon as possible. Of course, you can't do it on the spot when you're emotionally out there. But you can always try to come and say, get back to that person and say, I need 3 months, 6 months, I'll let you know when I'm able to engage on this, because now I am my whole world just fell apart.
Yeah.
An hour ago, I was still working on the relationship, but an hour ago, I was still imagining and dreaming of what our life would look like in a year or 10 years. So to make that shift, that is unreasonable for that person to expect the receiving spouse to just switch.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
And yeah, the thing I tell a lot of people, because I counsel a lot of people in relationships, and the thing I tell a lot of people is when this stuff happens, they've usually been planning for a long time. Sometimes the surprise of it is the effect, and marriage is an identity. And, like you mentioned or alluded to, it is a vehicle where people see two people moving together into their future, planning a future. You kind of rest in that sort of the thing, that Fight Club sort of thing where it's like, well, I've got that part of my life taken care of. I got the furniture and the duvet set, I've got that part of my life taken care of. And so a lot of people are like at that moment where they're like, well, I've got that marriage thing, kids taken care of, I'm on the track, for the retirement and, the golden age or whatever your vision of that is. And so it's a death of an identity. And when I talk to so many people in divorce or post-divorce, they don't understand that it really is a death of an identity, and there is a grieving process that goes on. You have to go through the steps of grief. It's just like when my dog dies, it's just like a death. And there's a process in the grieving, and then of course you've got all those emotions. So I like how your book approaches bringing a logic and reason sort of, sanity to it, and a step back where you can go, hey, okay, time out for me. I need to get my head around this, but I need to make sure I don't react in a way that, I like we say, we've seen this thing where one person's one-upping the other, and then what's the longest divorce right now? Brad Pitt and what's her face, Angela Jolie. Haven't they been going on for like 10 years plus now or something?
And that's not uncommon, even between regular people.
Uncommon. Oh, geez.
On and off, they try, they come back. As you said, the identity part is a lot of people treat the divorce as a closure from the outside. So they don't realize that, no, it's its own trauma, its own loss, its own process that needs mourning. And there's no wake for it. There's nobody, because what actually died is that sliver of identity that you hold within, the way that you view the world through that lens, and how you want to present yourself. Because as you must, identity itself is two-way. You present something, and the receiving party, has to accept that identity for it to be true. So that negotiation no longer exists. You're not wearing the ring anymore. You don't have that face that you can present to other people, and you have to mourn it as well. People divorce on a Wednesday, go to work on a Thursday, they get a nod from a colleague, and that's about it.
Yeah. And then you just go to Vegas for a weekend and do hookers and blow. No, don't do that, folks. It's bad. I'm just kidding. And you don't need to add drugs to that problem you already created. But no, I like how, some of the billing in the book details here. Divorce, emergency protocol reframes divorce not as a personal failure, but as a structural rupture requiring clarity and not chaos. I like how you put that. And that's another point. We talked about the identity, but also personal failure, right? Maybe as a man, you look at it and be like, where did I fail? Where did I go wrong? Should I have, done more of this or done more of that? Or she wanted this and I didn't follow through on whatever that was. And I've never been a woman, so I don't know how to take things from their point of view, but they feel like whatever. But yeah, I think a lot of people can feel that it's a failure, that they've they've sucked at life, but there's a lot of people that fail. So it's almost not like a failure at this point. It seems pretty common.
And because it's common, we need to accept it as such and be prepared for it.
Yeah. And I've had, my longest business partnership was basically a marriage. It was 22 years of my best friend that I went to high school with. Actually, we grew up from junior high as best friends. And we were business partners for 13. And I thought we had the greatest relationship, trust. And he was for 12 years, the best friend and the best business partner I could ever have. And, but these things end, these things kind of have a season, and I kind of relegate it to like, even every now and then the Rolling Stones break up and don't get along. It seems like every 10 years a band ends. So, it's pretty, you ride these things out. And I think the average marriage now only lasts 7 years or something like that.
Yeah. Less than 8 years. You're absolutely right.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Do you have any opinions on that?
I have a few controversial ones, but one of them is that back in the day when marriage was the institution that it was, people complemented each other. It was a business relationship. It was financial. The two get together, they make babies so that they have labor to till the fields and milk the cows and take the cattle out. So it was a business venture, or a political one. If you watch Game of Thrones, there are actual functions. Yeah. But today, in post-industrial society, we are redundant. We do exactly the same thing, and we leave things that we need done, and we outsource those. A husband and wife, they both go to work. They're both tired. Who's responsible for cooking? Who's responsible for rearing the kids, parenting? You outsource all of that. You have Kellogg's in the morning and you have the local diner at night. And, in between you have Betty Crocker, you outsource the food to. And for raising the kids, it's the daycare. It's the sequence of play dates. All of those things, the strain is so much that there isn't a support system. It used to take a village. We don't even have one person that can complement us in a marriage even. And when it was the nuclear family, there was some of that, back in the 50s. But that's when marriage itself as an institution started taking a nosedive. You mentioned the Goodfellas. I'll mention one even older, the 7-year itch. Yeah. See how far it goes. That was when, America as a society started noticing that there is a break in this institution. The last movie that I saw that, still played on the idea of complementing each other was Jerry Maguire in maybe mid-90s, when he sang something to the effect of "You complete me." That was the last one that I heard that was still part of the narrative that we have, that there is the two complement each other. They help each other become more than the individual parts of a man and a wife. So that's one of them. That's just one aspect of why marriage is not working anymore. Of course, there's, I would hate just to rattle all these things, but, the idea of victimhood, we're all victims. We all have ADHD, we have OCD, we have PTSD. It's like, wow, a whole society of challenged people, because I have a problem, so you have to work around it, around me and my problem. Well, that's a problem in and of itself. That other person in your life is already weighed down by all of the issues that they have to deal with: work, bosses, traffic, all of that stuff. And then they have to dedicate whatever is left to the marriage. But who's reciprocating? Like, where is that? Where do you get the energy to fulfill your connection and that relationship? From nowhere at this point. It's just being sucked out.
Yeah. I mean, some people say that one of the problems that we used to have in marriage is like what you said. We complement each other, we work together. In some countries, and it kind of used to be here, families would decide marriages, and one of the reasons you would get married is so that you could get the economy and support, financial support, and financial abilities of having an extended larger family than yourself or your family. And so two families are better than one, basically. And so, sometimes that would equate to better career opportunities, better, if you needed a loan for personal family members, there would be, like you mentioned that one show, Game of Thrones, there would be a way where two families would work together. And a lot of that stuff was kind of arranged or needed because you needed another person. We're kind of going through that now. I'm seeing a lot of single parents that are freaking out about, the inflation that's going on and the costs. We're in the middle of 2025 right now, and prices are starting to go out of control with some of the tariffs that have gone on. And I'm seeing people freaking out. I've had women tell me on dates now that they're, they're like, oh, my child support and alimony used to pay all the bills or at least the rent, and now it barely pays a utility bill. Yeah. And it's like, I don't think you're supposed to say divorce for 10 years and not either come up with a solid means of income or another man. And they say that, somewhere in the 60s, we decided that marriage is about love and how I feel as opposed to this convenience of a business sense. And that's kind of half the problem. Everyone's going, well, I'm not in love. I got love. And then you're right. We do seem to live in a culture of emotionalism and victimhood. I mean, even victimhood competition now, where everyone's trying to be like, what, you're a victim? No, I'm bigger than you as a victim. I have more, victimhood. And it's kind of this whole emotionalism state where people aren't operating logically.
And love is such a deceiving idea. Even Romeo and Juliet, there are some scholars that say this is a satire. It's a parody. And that's how I personally believe it. It's like they're making fun of, you're really going to kill yourself for love? You just met each other 2 days ago.
Just met each other 2 days ago, and I still see that in dating right now.
Yeah.
I love the Sam. Oh God, who's the Sam? Oh, who's the great comedian? Sam, what's his face? Remember, he would do the bit where he'd be like, knock, knock. It's love. Come on. No, I wouldn't screw you 9 times in a row. Come on in. Sam, I can't remember his last name, but he's just such one of my favorite comedians.
I usually, watch stand up all the time. I didn't come across that bit.
Sam came from the 80s. Let me see if I can't pull this thing up here. But yeah, he did this thing where he'd be like, "This is love. Come on in. No, I wouldn't screw you 1,000,000 times in a row." And he would do the whole bit. And
that's funny. Actually, if you notice, a lot of stand-up comedy specials, they're focused on relationships. It's such a weird time to try to understand what a relationship is, what it should be, and what it could be.
Yeah.
And right now, we talked about, I said, redundancy of function, which is the husband and wife are doing the same thing. So it makes sense that there is same-sex marriages, because at the end of the day, it's not about a gender role that one is cooking while the other one is working, the other one is providing safety or the physical side of the equation, the other one is providing the nursing and the nurturing. All of that is changing our society in ways that we are not able to see as a whole, as a system. But it is a interconnected system based on a lot of financial and economic factors.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not a personal failure, because at the end of the day, if more than half of the people who get married get divorced within 8 years, it can't be that it's a personal problem.
Yeah, I think some of it's our society and some of the belief systems in our society, and I mean, honestly, there are some people that go into divorce knowing that they go into marriage knowing they're going to divorce, and they have a plan just to fulfill let's get that biological clock out of the way. I've talked to so many divorced women, heard all their things, and then I owned a mortgage company for 20 years, so I read a lot of divorce decrees, and then had to hear their stories when we were doing their paperwork, and there's a reason I'm still single. But I like your approach. I mean, what we've talked about here is the aspect of, tamping down that emotional thing. You talk in the book about reclaiming agency when you feel blindsided. That's something that's a big step. Avoid costly legal and financial missteps. People need advice. We've joked about that. Prepare documentation and key records. That's sometimes a lot of, I've known guys that I'll be like, have you put together, the records? Do you know where everything's at? Her stuff, your stuff, etc. Because I guarantee she's saved your documents. Like I say, I've talked to a lot of divorced women, and still do with all that we do with I've got a huge dating group of about 5,000 people, and so I end up hearing a lot about the divorce and what happened and how they got single and yada yada yada. And records is like a big deal. Like, a lot of people don't put that together because they're still lost in the emotion of love, and they're like, well, if I could just win her love back or his love back, he'll change his mind. And really, sometimes you see accept that the car's out of gas and it's dead and it's not coming back. It's time to go.
And of course, taking action is a way to feel better. So when you're going through a divorce, you're feeling, betrayed and emotionally unstable and all of that. But instead of, balling up in an emotional mess of a ball, you can go and do stuff, including collecting the information. And it's not about fighting the other person. It's not about winning anything. It's about actually just knowing, having a complete picture of what is that this marriage financially is all about, because that's what you're going to discuss at the end of the day. In addition to kids, if you have them, that is by itself empowering. That gives you agency. Even if you have question marks like, I don't have this piece of information, that by itself will give you that confidence that you know where the holes are. So I like your concept there. If you don't mind me interrupting you, just to highlight your concept is it gives you something to do, and sometimes doing something can help you through these processes, staying busy, staying active, focusing on, results, because, one of the things you cite in the book thing as well is communicate with dignity instead of panic. So many people, with this fight in divorce, they just want up emotionally, take things to the next level. And it's so hard to ratchet that back down. They're spending all this money and fighting over stupid shit that it's not going to matter in the end. The court really just cares about the children for the most part, and they make it worse a lot of times with the emotional reaction. Absolutely. There's one thing that that happens when you're outsourcing all of that. You're either doing something that puts you at a disadvantage on the long run, or in the divorce itself, or you want to seek somebody else's help, like a lawyer. And if you hire, a fighter, you're going to be dragged into the mud anyways, and it will cost you. But the thing is, with our justice system, the idea of justice here is procedural. It's the idea of going through paperwork and steps. At the end of the day, the outcome is never fair, or not necessarily fair, because, as you said, the judge will rule the same way either way. You mentioned two different examples, and it seems like they both ended up with the same thing that they started with.
Yeah, it was funny. I'm like, you spent $100,000. The attorneys made all the money. And, like you mentioned, there are good attorneys out there. I wasn't happy with my friend's attorney. I'm like, this dude's just jacking you up and stringing you out for the hourly. And, like I said, I'm not going to throw all attorneys under the bus, but this particular one was. And I even called him up, read him the riot act. They wanted me to drive down to California and be a witness for the thing. It ended up being a complete waste of my time. And I warned him. I said, if I come down there and you waste my time, I'm going to raise some hell with you. And I did. I ran him through the clock at the family court, because they were just, burning hourly. And so, the book that you're offering, helps people advocate for themselves and not get caught up in that emotional process and logical process. Because, the other thing you talk about in the book is this affects the children, right?
Yeah, it's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't dismiss the emotional part as long as you are aware.
Yeah.
And that awareness by itself, there's actually in one of the chapters, I think it's chapter 5, where I talk about self-care. I don't get deep into it, but at least have, 5 before 10, for instance. Do 5 things before 10 a.m. Shower, breathe. Those are smaller wins. You can
I have to
feel
start showering?
Yeah. It helps you and the people around you.
I can't do the once a week thing anymore?
Not anymore. Not after you read the book.
Okay. All right. I should probably read the book then. Here's another thing that we're talking about right now is you're giving people steps forward. One of the things you go through in hard times, cathartic times, we talk about this ad nauseum on the show, is just keep moving forward. In this case, you're going to be moving forward alone. And sometimes that feeling of being alone, when you've kind of gone from the security blanket and the comfort of, I'm together with this person, they got my back, I get their back, or they're supposed to. But you giving them a roadmap, and you talk about in the book, designing the first phase of your divorce with intention and not impulse. And I would probably add emotional reactivity that isn't going to be helpful and just going to escalate the emotional thing. I think that's great that you have that in your book, because what you're doing is you're focusing them on moving forward in a healthy manner and also giving them something to think about rather than just throwing that pity party.
Yeah, exactly. And we start from the same point. It's not your fault that you're in this situation.
Right.
It's
the other person's fault.
No, it's believe it or not, I think it's the institution or society that doesn't want us to be married just because it's structured that way at this point. But in reality, if you got into this, the marriage itself as a team, and as soon as you said, I do, it broke down. It broke down because you have no longer the same goals of moving forward together to achieve. And even if you think that you have it implicitly, it's not explicit enough for people to move forward. And at the end of the day, you are actually 2 different people. So it makes sense when you get to that fork in the road of divorce to make it easy on each other, because you will need that money that, instead of spending it and give it to lawyers or even mediators, to actually hold on to that and build a new life on a solid foundation.
There you go. I talked to somebody recently. It was a guy who got divorced, and one of the things he did was, when the divorce started, he put himself in therapy, and he cited that as really helping him navigate the divorce and do well. And some of the behavior I've seen people do in divorces, where I'm like, your children are watching, they're listening, you're really fucking your kids in the head, and that's not healthy. And divorce is generational trauma. I'm a guy who's dated all my life, 35 years. I've seen it all. I started dating divorced women about 28, 29 in Utah when they were coming on their first 10-year run. In Utah, they get married like 18. And so I've heard all the stories. Like I said, I own a mortgage company for 20 years. You have to read every divorce decree. I've probably read, I don't know, several hundred divorce decrees, heard a million stories. And that's the reason I'm still single, folks. And I still have all my money and 100% of my shit. It's that's one of the things I realized too, you mentioned, is that I wanted to highlight, is this is a different person. And sometimes people, they think they own people because, well, we own each other because we're married. We're in this vehicle going through life. This is one of the reasons I own companies, and I don't own people or get married, is because I can change a company because I own it. I can do stuff to my BMW because I own it, but I can't change another person. I mean, when another person wants to walk away, we talked about the hostage situation before, that's their prerogative. You know, you can't force other people to do what you want. I mean, that's a great way to end up in jail for slavery or kidnapping or, whatever else. And so, yeah, recognizing these things. Let's talk about, let's move to what you could do on your website, some of the services you offer. How can people utilize your group coaching and consulting that you do there on your website?
Yeah, I have, for instance, a divorce exit plan course that is live for 3 weeks, starting on the 7th of August. By the way, for your listeners, if they would use Voss 150, they would get a discount for that.
Oh.
That is one. And of course, I have the book, Divorce Emergency Protocol. And there are some writings and other opportunities, including reaching out to me for consultation. And of course, I do that on a regular basis with individuals and organizations. By the way, I used to have a girlfriend whose friend used to say that I'm a hostage negotiator for marriages. And now that you're saying hostage negotiator, I never understood what that means exactly, but it seems like the hostage is the emotion at this point.
Well, you know, like I've had people do that to me, and like they'll be like, "I'm going to quit," or "You must do this," and of course, I usually look at what that is, but I'm a big believer in don't hold the relationship hostage. Don't try to extort me with the relationship. If you want to talk to me about something that's not working, then we can have that conversation. But it's a whole different level when someone hostages the relationship and they hold a gun to its head and go, "You do what I do, you change, or I kill the hostage. I kill the marriage." Yeah. And so, like I said, my feeling is like kind of what we talked about, where once somebody wants to do what they want to do, they've done it. And a lot of times when they finally vocalize it, I think especially women, because women tend to, internalize, they're much more submissive. They're worried about the social aspect of divorce and how they're going to be judged and stuff. So I think women, as men, we're very outward and vocal. Women are more quiet and internal. When they finally voice something they've been thinking about it for a long time. I mean, women sometimes, I think the one divorce case that I dated someone in, she had been planning for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
The divorce.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if, that's fully true, but she claimed that she had been, and she'd been spending years losing weight, getting a boob job, running up his credit cards, paying up for, I heard all the crazy shit, and I'm just like, I'll be burying you. Thanks for telling me all about all that. Now I know who you are, but no. So what is it? If attorneys out there listening, I would think that it would be great for an attorney to bring you into a process, especially when it's getting emotionally messy. Because I just be like, as attorney, I just be like, I'm going to shoot both these clients with their, they've amped this stuff, into nuclear emotional war.
Yeah, it happens quite a bit with mediation and lawyers collaborating together to help a couple to cross that line. It happens. It's a new thing, and it's a shift. It's specifically called collaborative divorce, which mostly lawyers lead. But of course, if it's a mediator who's leading, each mediator will have a different way of approaching that with the lawyers. But it's usually better for everybody involved because. Yeah. When you have a lawyer, you're talking to your lawyer, that's billable hours. The lawyer is talking to the other lawyer, billable hours. Other lawyer is talking to the other client, it's a billable. It's like what a mediator would do in 1 hour, it costs other people 4 hours worth of.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point too, because in many cases, if the woman didn't work, and the guy was the sole provider, he's going to pay for his lawyer and he's going to have to pay for her lawyer. And that's usually, I think, how the courts roll these days, don't they? In that particular case?
Not specifically, but at the end of the day, that's, it's marital responsibility.
Marital money's marital money, yeah.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, yes, there is a discrepancy here and there that can be reconciled on the books and the ledger somehow, but they're both going to pay for it. Even if we consider that emotional toll is costly.
Yeah.
Because if you can't do other things, go and get a job or can't, do a gig job, but that's still, direct cost on the people who are in the middle of it.
Yeah, and the sooner you can, get it over with, move on. And, I've seen healthy divorces that have been amicable, and sometimes they've worked it out themselves without the lawyers. And that's just been so much better for the children, for what the children experience. Because, going through a divorce that takes years or a year, and they overhear all the stuff. They hear the phone calls, they feel the tension of the parents. This is really important for them. And I think, from the aspects of what you put forth, maybe I'll just put this book in my singles group, because there's still people fighting over their shit in the singles group, and or trying to square the emotional toll of their divorce. I think that approaching from a logical sense, I'm the same way now. Like if a business partner or somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to quit," or an employee says, "I'm going to quit," and then they're like, "Well, I was just acting out." No, you weren't. No, you weren't. You've thought about this. You didn't act out. You were the person who got drunk and said the quiet part out loud that you've been stewing. So we're just gonna help you advance the exit here by moving you there. We're gonna give you what you want, is what I call it. People are like, "No, I didn't want to be fired." I'm like, "No, you wanted to quit. And there's consequences. So we're just going to help you, give you what you want." People are like, "I hate you, Chris. You're a piece of shit boss." Okay, great. Well, let me help you fulfill what you want.
Moving on.
But no, I don't want to get fired. Well, this is part of how the whole thing works. So,
you mentioned something very important leading up to that. The kids. I'm a product of a broken home back in the 80s. And I am still living the divorce.
Really?
And I'm sure that everybody else, because even my career is focused on relationships. And, I could have been doing other stuff with my degrees and making real money and living more comfortably. But I'm still agonizing over the little AJ that once was the son of those parents. And my parents were, a college professor and an engineer, very quiet people, very sophisticated people, very, reasonable. And out of the blue, no shouting, no yelling, nothing. And then there's divorce. But even that they appear to have moved on as kids, we had to continue to deal with it even till now. Even the passing of our father, that was, something that brought us together when we had fractions in the family up to that point, and we'll still continue to have it. So I can only imagine how today's kids, who actually see their parents fight, and they become pawns in this chess game that they're playing, and they're using the kids to actually deliver blows to each other and punish each other. They're just really, it's unconscionable when it comes to raising the kids that way.
One other benefit of people getting your book and working with you too, to have a logical, reasonable attachment to this, is, as the new boyfriend, I usually don't try to date somebody who's not 2 to 3 years out of a divorce anymore. But even then, a lot of times the ex-husband gets jealous, thinks he's being replaced as a father. I know enough about psychology that you should never muck up the child's relationship with the natural born father. And sometimes I've had to sit down with an ex-husband, and go, "Look, I'm not trying to subjugate you or, deface you in front of your children. These are your children," because I don't want them. I don't want to pay for them. But these are your children. It would be wrong for me to interfere. I would be doing damage to these children if I tried to subjugate you as their father and their birth father, or interfere in that relationship, because it's very healthy. It's what they need. Because I've seen what generational divorce looks like. I've seen it. I've seen what the end game is after 20 and 30 years of multiple divorces, and the effect on childhood. I often say single mothers raise single mothers raise single mothers. It's very true. And same thing with single fathers too. Many of the single fathers that I know, they're raised in divorce. And so a lot of the blueprints they were given by their parents, we go ahead and utilize in real life. And if you've got a broken blueprint, things aren't going to work out for you. It's just a given. So as we go out, final thoughts on the book. Tell people, pitch out to them how they can reach out to you, get to know you better. The event that you mentioned, we may want to get a plug in for as well.
Absolutely. So Maddeny.com, Maddeny.com. You'll go there on the landing page. You'll get a lot of information, including on the top, the next cohort for the divorce exit plan, which we utilize a lot of the stuff that is in the book, Divorce Emergency Protocol, and then some, zip files where they can start collecting information and what have you, and what to do with that information and how to utilize them. And there, if you need free guides, there is a free guide as well. Reach out to me. I have my Calendly open there. More than happy to discuss personal situations.
Oh, well, I think this is great. And like I said, I mean, there's people still going through the emotional divorce process like years later. And you're like, dude, you really need to move on from this thing. She did this and he did that and blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, that's all water on the bridge now. You need to figure out how to make the next steps to move on and clear yourself. And, that's one of the reasons I don't date people that have been divorced for at least 2 to 3 years, depending upon the length of their divorce, because they haven't gone through the grieving process. They haven't gone through, kind of figuring out who they are again. And they have to become a new person because they were a different person in divorce. It's a different identity. So you have to become your own person again. You have to figure out what you like and what you want to do with your life and, plan that out. So I'm glad you help get people get their wheels on the ground and start heading that direction, man. Give us any .com so we go out so we have that final.
Yes. So use the code VOS150 if you choose to enroll in the course at Maddeny.com, Maddeny.com.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, man.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thanks, Ernest, for tuning in. Order up the book wherever fine books are sold. Recommend it to your friends that might be going through issues. Divorce Emergency Protocol out June 14th, 2025. And please, people, think of the children. For the love of God, I've seen just so many horrible divorces, and the children just get put through the mill. Like, behave, be nice to each other. The example you set through divorce and being decent to a father or mother, people have to have these people in their lives, and please don't do parental alienation. That is if you want to create generational trauma, do parental alienation. That's the one thing I just find disgusting and evil at a whole new level. Thanks for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Facebook.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, all those crazy places. The internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.